All right, we're going to talk a little bit about graffiti. And letters are all letters. They're all pretty simple. But the thing about graffiti is you got to show depth and dimension. So we're just going to do a couple of letters here. And for instance, if we were going to do an A, and I'm going to sketch out an A here because first letter of the alphabet, of course, there's a lot of things that you have to know about proper graffiti. And depending on what you want to say about a letter, this thickness of these parts of this letter all should be pretty close to uniform, pretty close to consistent. So, and if you're adding this, and I'll go ahead and do it in marker because it's going to show up a lot more, but let's say this is our A, and we want to have the A stretched out here. This is just a simple A, and it doesn't matter if you have some of these lines crossing or undercrossing. It won't matter at all because you'll see why here in a second. So there's a big bold A. Now, if we want to give this dimension, let's say we want this thing to look like it's a drop shadow. Pretend the light's coming from here, so everything that's not seen here, the light on this, is going to draw down a shadow line. So let's just go ahead and put a line behind here, and think again, we're coming this way, so everything that's underneath here is going to be the shadow. So if you see, it's coming down, comes across, and this is all shadow. So see, it's dropping down. Now, every part of that letter that does that is going to have that same density to it. And here I'm going to bring the inside in a little bit, drop this down, and we're down here. We're going to come here. So what we're doing is we're establishing that this is in fact a drop shadow. Now here's the cool part about this. This is, in my opinion, one of the coolest things of illustrating graffiti. I'll move these text lines out of here just so we don't have anything confusing. And this is, there's no right or wrong. The letters can be whatever you need them to be as far as shape and size. So whether you've got something that's a scrape on the side of it or what have you, it doesn't matter. You're going to be fine. No one's going to yell at you. So let's take it from a drop shadow to a 3D letter. Watch this simple trick that does this. Fill in those corners, and all of a sudden you've got a 3D block letter. Now your 3D block letter can be as deep as you want it to be, but now that I have a 3D block letter, simply by filling in those edges, it gives it depth. Now if I'm going to do anything else, we can go into the other types of shading and such as far as what we would do at the fronts of it, but that is a whole nother portion of what we would want to do. What I'm going to show you next is, I'm going to try to show you anyway, is what I want to show you next is a variation of this letter A. So the letter A can be a simple bold block like that, or let's say we want to have some character to our A. So sometimes the A is going to come up and it's going to feel a little bit more like it's playing, or it's got a little bit of let's say kick to it. So certain parts of the letter can be exaggerated. For instance, keep in mind the simplest thing to do is keep all of your lines uniform. Uniform being thickness, uniform. And in graffiti, things change. So if you picture these things like a crossbar coming across here, by the time it gets over here, it's wider, so it actually comes out at an angle. So you sometimes want to dress that up a little bit. So we come in here, throw a couple of different things out. This may overlap over the back, come up over the top, and as you see, we're just kind of building a letter that's got its own character. Now this could be something that drops down a little bit further, maybe comes back up and kicks into itself, and you can take this any number of ways that you want to. And this is real simple stuff because you want to take these, and it's funny because you can just get rid of the lines you don't like, and you can see that you're starting to develop the letter itself. Now this, you can see, follows up this line, and it's going to follow down this line here. So we've got a character A now, and this character A, we're certainly going to feel that this one has a little bit more depth to it. So let's go ahead and fill this in so that we can kind of have a look at this as what it may look like as we start to get it going a little bit more here. And I'll do this really quickly, just trying to get across the point that it doesn't really matter. You can do whatever letter style you want. Again, there are no rules. Graffiti is what you feel is the most important part of the letter. And the reason I'm doing an A, obviously being the first letter of the alphabet, is one thing, but it's so it's recognizable to you. And in this particular case, you are going to want this one to be extremely deep because it's got so much character as if it's bouncing off of the wall. And that's important because if you're doing a design that says, yeah, I need to feel like this is moving around, then you want this to have an extra deep drop shadow. And we can kind of add these things in here. And you'll see that you can actually start to add. And the cool part about graffiti is if you, for instance, make a mistake, which there are no mistakes, but if you do something you don't like, then you can just add to it and it's going to get better. It's going to get much better as you go along. And I'm doing this, and for instance, this right here, I made this leg a little bit longer, a little bit wider. That's okay. And now I feel like this A has some depth to it. See all these rough edges? No worries. Look, you just start coming in and you just mimic your line on the other side, and before you know it, you've got yourself a nice deep drop shadow. Finish this up a little bit here. Take this down to here. So, two different A's, two different types of font, and two different types of actions to them. Drop shadow, character. We'll erase this stuff off here just so we can see what this looks like. But you're going to get all shook up here because it's shaking the camera pretty bad. But I'm assuming they're shaking together, so it shouldn't matter too much. So there we have two different A's. Alright, so now even another type of A could simply be a intensely, grotesquely distorted A in itself, and again, there is no wrong answer, but it's going to be up to you as to what you feel would be your move. So if you were in fact drawing a different type of A, you can now begin to play along with its around with its drop shadow, play around with the letters it's making. And if you notice these things here, they all kind of follow themselves, and that's part of the excitement of graffiti, is you just kind of find your way through it. And if I started to bring these out a little bit more at a time, I'm feeling some different ways that I want to communicate that this letter is basically feeling that it's got a different move to it. So I'm kind of feeling that this might have something that comes out here, and I know that it's going to come through here, so it may come out back here, and if it does, so be it. And there, I continue that through. So now I've got a different type of A. Again, let's go ahead and fill this in. You stay on the outside, so you can start your drawing and stay on the outside, and you may just kind of feel that, oh, something's going to happen here. And again, I'm staying all on the outside here. I'm not going into the inside of these letters that I've drawn. I'm just making space on here, because one of the exciting things is you're going to see is when we get to the next step, which is filling in these, there's some pretty cool things you can do. So we've got a new style of A here. This A may have more of a drop shadow to it than the other ones, may have less of a drop shadow, may not have a drop shadow at all. You may want to use some sort of graphic splashes behind it. But regardless, your letter becomes yours. This doesn't exist as any other letter. Use reference. Look at other graffiti artists and see what they've done. But keep in mind, if you're going to use this style of A, you're going to want to continue with whatever the next letter would be. So if it's going to match that style, whatever you could sketch into it would be the most important thing, is follow what you feel is the best part of it. So in this one, again, I'm looking as this light's coming from above this thing. So I'm going to kind of play off this a little bit. I know that the bottom of this is going to be shadowed. This is going to be shadowed a little deeper here because it's up in front of this. And when we get to the point of adding the texture to the front of this, it's going to kind of feel a whole different way. So we're going to go clear out here. And we'll give it a good foot down here. And a good foot down here. So outline 101. Do what you feel you need to do to make your letters look like they've got some life to them. So there's 3 different examples of random A's. They don't exist anywhere. Standard block letter A, a little bit more life and kick, and something a little bit more with signature to it. Next step we're going to talk about is a little bit of the face of these things and what we can do with the color. So there's your basic thoughts for drop shadows and adding depth to your letters.
It's Ohio Jimbo. Hey, please subscribe below. Click the bell beside it if you want to be alerted when I upload. And of course, leave comments below as well.